Welcome to Shepherd's Coffee Talk. We have had such interest in this topic. We've asked Nurse Maddie to come back and talk to us about marijuana. You had lots of questions.
We had so much engagement, and a couple of things we wanted to talk about today, Maddie, if you don't mind. Of course, there's great interest in using marijuana for wellness.
Yeah.
So when we have challenges with inflammation, we were talking about Parkinson's disease, we were talking about other, you mentioned cerebral palsy. CBD oil now has, cannabis really has a role to play in making us feel better.
Yeah.
There's no question, not just getting us high, but making us feel better. And so can we touch on and maybe save for a super on its own conversation a little bit about dosing today and how to figure that piece out? And then let's talk about recreational use, because I don't know. I have no idea. I need your advice.
Yeah, no, so obviously we kind of talked last time, but we'll do a little recap. So THC and CBD are the big components in cannabis. THC will cause the high or the psychoactive effect. CBD does not, which makes people a bit more keen to try it, or at least a little bit less worried when they're trying it. You know, cannabis doesn't have the same risks as, you know, opiates or alcohol in terms of actually causing damage when you initially take it, but it's still, you know, it's possible to take it and not feel good at all. I have lots of friends that have kind of taken too much, so the dosing is really important, like you say. So it's interesting. If you're taking an oral oil, a product like that, it's all going to depend on how many milligrams are within the bottle. So if you remember giving like your kids Tylenol when it was a liquid, and you would have to fill up the little dropper with a certain amount of liquid based on how many milligrams were in the bottle. So that's really how that kind of dosing works. With inhaled or vaporized cannabis, it's a little bit different. You know, if you purchase a bit of cannabis and you roll a joint, or you put it in a vaporizer, if the three of us, you know, smoked a joint together, I smoke much more regularly than you guys, so my inhales will be much bigger. I can hold it in longer. You might have one or two puffs and not inhale as much, not hold it in. So we're all going to have different effects, even though we use the same product. So more consistent or precise dosing is often done with the oils, because at least you know, this is how much I took. I took it at 8 a.m. You know, it's like any other pill, so it's going to last for 6 to 8 hours like a Tylenol does. When you inhale medication like cannabis, it's only going to last for an hour or so. Okay. So much different kind of in your system once it's there.
And if you talk about ingesting the oil, better to start with a little bit and work up.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do your own dosing for your size and so on, I guess. Yeah.
We always say in nursing, start low and go slow, no matter what drug it is. And I think that's really important in cannabis as well. So if you have a bottle of CBD, I'm far less worried about you taking that initial dose and kind of experimenting with the dosing, because you're not going to be stoned, you're not going to be out of it, you're not impaired. I'm not worried about you driving. Experimenting with THC, you really, really want to start small. So, you know, they're starting to promote edible products now that'll be available in a few months through the legal stores. You know, everyone's like, oh, it's 10 milligrams for one gummy. You know, I'm going to want to eat the whole bag. Probably not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. You know, cannabis really does affect your system differently when you eat it. It's processed by your liver. It doesn't just go right into your bloodstream like it does when you smoke. So people are often like, I smoke all the time, and then I had an edible and I was unconscious for 12 hours. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, it's always figuring out that very small amount. And when I have people that listen to me and kind of do the more medical dosing as opposed to recreational dosing, we have people saying, oh my God, I had the best sleep ever, no issues in the morning. And it's finding that balance of, you know, no problem if you're at the cottage and you want to have a relaxed day, right? People do that with alcohol, no problem. But if you need to be up and doing something the next day, you have to figure out, okay, I can only take this much THC before, you know, my meeting tomorrow morning. So
I think the thing is, we have to take this stuff seriously, even though it's a recreational thing in many ways, and now we're using it to treat ourselves for inflammation and other issues. We have to take it seriously. It's like the drinking and driving thing. You know, you just can't get high and go get in your car.
Yeah.
We have to be responsible. I suppose that's what we really need to say.
Yeah.
Can we talk now about recreational use?
Yeah.
Because I know that if Marlene and I went to the pot shop today, what would you be asking for,
I
Marlene?
have no idea.
Yeah, it's funny though, because people used to just call their dealer and say, I need cannabis or I need weed, right? So now you can go into a store and not only specify, I want to smoke cannabis or I want to eat my cannabis. You can say, I want to feel awake and energized, or I want to feel asleep and relaxed. I want to be stoned. I don't want to be stoned. You know, there's so many different options. So again, I think the big distinguishing factor that'll help people, THC does cause the high effect, CBD does not. THC is also really going to help with nerve pain. It's going to help with sleep because it's very sedating. Versus CBD is going to help more for things like anxiety, things like Parkinson's disease, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis that we talked about last time. Diseases where you see lots of spasticity, lots of pain. Those things tend to be really, really well received with CBD. So, you know, a big reduction in symptoms, whether it's tremors, whether it's you're always in that kind of tense or flexion, we call it, where your muscles are always tense. If that's the case, after 10 hours, it gets pretty sore. So, you know, having CBD in your system or applying it topically makes a huge difference for those types of things. The other big distinguishing factor that'll help you out a lot at the pot store, you have two different strains of cannabis. There are sativa strains and indica strains. Sativa strains and indica strains are very different. Yeah, no, it's funny. People are like, oh, I didn't realize there was a difference. I'm like, well, this is gonna rock your world. So sativa strains, people actually call it house cleaning weed, because it's energizing, it's stimulating, it kind of gives you that wake you up boost of energy, which is fantastic if you have depression or you have seasonal affective disorder, you have chronic fatigue syndrome where you truly have really little energy and a hard time kind of getting out of bed. Those are fantastic for you. Those are really, really great for people who have that low energy or that low mood. On the other hand, you have indica strains, and I know this is the lamest joke in the world, but couch. I know, it's horrible. I know, people are probably gonna unfollow you now for that one. But, you know, it really does make you think, okay, that's your more nighttime, sleep-oriented, relaxing strain compared to the sativa that's basically a daytime strain, because why on earth would you use a sativa strain if you wanted to relax and go to bed, right? It's gonna make you wanna get up and vacuum. So, you know, it's really...
I give that to my husband.
Nothing would ever make me get up and vacuum.
Yeah, no, exactly though. But you know what? You have people that say, oh my God, I tried the sativa and I couldn't get to bed. I didn't realize it was that big of a thing. Or people say, I cannot use indica. I used it before, you know, going to a concert and I just wanted to go to bed. Yeah. So it's really picking and choosing, and that can be a huge difference in whether you enjoy your cannabis experience or not, right? You go to a store, you want to relax, you're having a hard time sleeping, and you go home with a sativa, that's not going to help you out. So it's really, really important for people to know those big distinguishers.
And then on top of knowing the difference between the two, is it also the percentage of THC in whatever we're purchasing that's going to impact us? You know, I'm a small person, so maybe for me it might be different for somebody else. That makes sense?
Totally, yeah. It's like alcohol. So you have varying percentages with your alcohol. So of course you're going to be much more intoxicated if you have a 1 ounce glass of vodka versus a 1 ounce glass of, like, let's just say wine, because it's 12% versus 40, right? So if you're a novice cannabis user, you're trying it for the first time, you don't need 30% THC. You'll feel totally great with 7, 8, 9% THC. The cannabis that people were using in the 70s and 80s was 1 to 2% THC.
Oh my gosh,
okay,
really?
so in 2011, we started to see jumps where the standard street cannabis was closer to 20 to 22.
Oh, wow.
So you have, you know, my parents' friends, without sounding totally rude, you know, would use cannabis with my friends or through people I would know, and they'd be like, this is ridiculous. This is like designer weed that I can't even, you know, comprehend the strength of. So it's just through grow techniques, through the government actually being involved and able to test the products for things like molds and mildews and grow it in a controlled environment, you end up with cannabis that's much higher quality than it used to be.
Lots to learn.
Oh, Marlene,
Thank you for
so
being
much
here.
to know.
Totally.
Maddie, we love you.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Thank you. And thank you so much for all your comments and your
Yeah.
interest. And again, continue to ask us, and you're wonderful in replying
Yeah, anytime.
and giving advice. So,
Yeah, you can reach out to me via any means, anytime.
Okay, well, come on back and learn more from Nurse
Thank
Maddie.
you for
But in
joining
the
us.
meantime, please leave your comments below and your questions if you have them. We'll have Maddie back.